What did you make of the Prime Minister's speech this morning?
Look, the speech was pretty heavily focused on defending what Labor's doing and also warning and taking aim at One Nation in particular. And we can come to that. But yes, there were a couple of new announcements beyond just defending what the government's done in the budget. Those two announcements, one on extending the paid prac payments to beyond just teachers, nurses, midwife, students, but to 10 allied health professions, clinical psychology, speech pathology, pharmacy and so on. There's already criticism about others who've missed out, medicine, veterinary students, government leaving some openness there down the track to move on those, but this being billed and sold as a cost of living measure to help substantially those who do have to, as part of their training, undergo that paid, that practical work placement. And then the other one was the Fair Work Court. A lot of this is still TBC. There's going to be a consultation process, but the idea seems to be for smaller claims when a worker's been underpaid, hundreds or even thousands of dollars. It's too expensive to go through the current system, too lengthy and costly. So this would be a new, simpler court that would allow some of those smaller claims to be dealt with. But really beyond that, which both were billed as helping workers, helping with cost of living and helping upskill, this really is framed in the context of Labor trying to pitch itself at this conference as the last party standing in the sensible centre while the right-wing parties are squabbling amongst themselves.
As you said, David, Anthony Albanese also took a swipe at One Nation in this speech.
Yeah, he did. I mean, this was really the overarching theme, I think, for all of the opening addresses we had this morning at the conference, from the new president of the party, Kate Ellis, from Peter Malinauskas, who's the local premier here in South Australia, from Prime Minister Anthony Albanese and his deputy, Richard Marles. They all spoke to this. And Anthony Albanese in particular, talking about One Nation, its personal clashes within the party, its policy chaos, its confusion, but also then lumping it together with the coalition, which he argued were both focused on making it easier to sack workers, to cut pay, to cut wages, to remove things like paid parental leave. So he's going through a list of grievances, I suppose, that he has with One Nation and the Liberal Party. But you do get the sense here that One Nation is being treated as the more serious opposition right now by Labor than its traditional opponents, the coalition.
So what are likely to be the points of contention within the Labor ranks?
Look, we know where the points of contention are, but most of them seem to be being smoothed out to avoid any embarrassments on the floor of the conference. This morning in particular, in the economic chapter of debate, moves and momentum towards a gas tax seem to have been addressed with a wording that will go into the platform that simply says a fairer share, including through taxation from our natural resources, but doesn't explicitly say there should be a new export tax on gas. We just heard from Ed Husick, Labor backbencher now, outside the conference. He had to leave the security perimeter here to hold the doorstop to make the case for a gas tax, but he is a bit of a lone voice within the caucus, at least publicly backing this idea. So, look, there'll be some debate about it on the fringes, but the Prime Minister, the Treasurer today are playing down this idea. Now's not the right time, they argue, given the fuel insecurity issues that they're trying to deal with, making sure that we keep supplies flowing from our Asian partners, and they rely on our gas, so we don't want to upset that by introducing a new gas tax. So it doesn't appear as though there's going to be any move towards that from the government anytime soon. Look, there is going to be an amendment. I think it has already, in fact, been embraced in the platform here just in the last hour, to pay superannuation to younger workers under 18, even if they're not working 30 hours a week. So there'll be elements like that that do go into the Labor platform. Tomorrow it'll be gambling advertising. That'll be interesting to see how much passion there is in the debate, how much pressure on the government to go further than it already has in its legislation on reforming gambling ads. Then on Saturday we've got the AUKUS debate, and the one that's still in play is Gaza, and how strong Labor goes in its platform in condemning Israel, but also condemning Hamas over what's happening there. So there's still some issues being negotiated behind the scenes, but an effort to avoid any big embarrassments for the government on the conference floor.